where things are going, it can turn into a mess pretty quickly. So,
Well, I've got a lot of receipts, and I went to Home Depot today, and they printed out
every
the
transaction.
receipt for every transaction that we made there on each of the bank.
That's awesome. I think we lost her. I think they're gone.
Your sound went out.
Pro accounts, but the gal that I worked with today went in and checked it and set it up so that it's more accessible and so on.
Yeah.
Got to set up properly.
That's good. Well, I'm currently refinancing my house, and getting all that paperwork together has made me realize that every investor or every person in this business should have everything that the lender needs if you're going to use loans in a little kit built into a Google Drive or a folder on your laptop. And about once or twice a year, you should update all those files, right? Doesn't have to be bank accounts statements, because you're gonna have to do that anyways in real time. But any profit and loss, your taxes, Schedule E's, right?
Is it not true that QuickBooks will do that? All the, divide things into categories and all that kind of stuff?
QuickBooks will do some of that, profit loss, cash statement, all those types of things. But when it comes to all the rest of the documents, you kind of have to have a lender ready archive. That's what I realized this last week, is that I've been doing so many owner financing deals that I haven't really needed to prepare most of this stuff.
Oh boy.
So this has been a rude awakening for me. I had to get a profit and loss statement for my real estate business. I already had a profit and loss for the investment business, but I had to do it for a real estate business in a month that I, was very, very busy. So I think one of the key things it is marketing, because if you don't have it, you can't buy properties, is understanding what you're spending and understanding where you are currently. And I think a lot of people just wait to the end of the year, and then they're like, oh, cool, how much did I make, or how much do I owe in taxes?
What's a Schedule E?
A Schedule E is the IRS's document for what each one of your investment properties made in terms of a net operating income. So it has expenses on there, debts, assets, liabilities, management, all that stuff. It's pretty much like a P&L for one specific address. And you may have multiple, right? But most lenders will ask for the last 3 years in order to kind of look at the forecastability of the property. And then if you're using an LLC, your accountant will take those Schedule E's and turn it into a K1 so that you can file your personal taxes.
Oh, I know a K1.
Yep. So Schedule E's is what you want to review when you're looking at a property that's an investment cash flow property. And one of the most overlooked, under-asked things when you're buying a duplex that I've noticed that even if you ask for them, people don't even have them, especially if they're living there. They're like, oh, it's not really an investment property for us. And I with Mike's deal and a few other deals that I've asked lately, I'll even ask the property manager, like, give me everything you have, and they'll send me like 2 documents. So a lot of people don't even keep up to what they should be. And that's usually why you have a really good real estate accountant to tell you what you should be doing and keeping that best. But in terms of marketing, sales, and making this conversation have some sort of subject or theme tonight, I want to talk about, like, we're coming into August, we're going to go into the fall, and you should start thinking for 2022. Like, do I have a one-page marketing plan or a one-page acquisition plan or a one-page rehab plan on how many properties I want to work on next year? And what is my goal, right? Both from a cash flow, if it's a rental and hold scenario, or what is my goal in terms of the amount of projects I want to do? And I think what most people don't realize is they go to, they eat turkey and then they go into Christmas and they start drinking and they're like, oh, well, it's January 1st. I didn't even know what happened. And you can't really get that momentum kind of built up and your team aligned or your marketing in the right places because you get stuck in the fall holiday, stupor, I call it. And I'm guilty of it as well. So what I want everyone to do is in the month of September, I want you to plan out what you're going to do in the first 6 months of 2022. You need to set a goal. So for Mike, Mike and Gail, not Mike Grudison, you're going to be acquiring a property and you're going to possibly take it over September 1st. And now you have September, October, November, December. You have 4 months. You should be on the market by January 15th. Right? That is a goal that you can set now so that if you sell January 15th, you're essentially going to be somewhere able to buy a second property possibly, or find one in the early spring so that you're possibly finishing and still getting a good selling season for next year. You can do 2 properties. And so I think everybody needs to set that marketing plan up from the most minuscule point. What is my ultimate goal with that one-page marketing plan? Is it to do 2 projects? Is it to cash flow a certain amount of money? And how do I achieve that? By doing some specific marketing. There's a lot of different real estate investment companies, especially in our Eugene market, that do terrible Facebook ads. I guarantee they're not generating any leads. If they are, maybe 1 or 2 projects a year. There's a lot of people buying from wholesalers. There's a lot of overpriced competition for wholesaling properties. So why don't you create your own inventory? And then if you don't want it, wholesale it to somebody else. And that's where the marketing and having a plan for 2022 comes into play. I can tell you this, guys, right now. If a single investment property comes across my deck, I'm not going to wholesale it. I'm probably going to list it because that property takes me 4 weeks to sell and essentially makes me 3 to 4%, depending on what it is. If somebody's going to buy it on the wholesaling market, that's fine, totally fine. But there's a goal there, right? I'm going to eat up the properties that I don't want and list them myself. And the properties that any other flippers want or anybody that wants them possibly would assign to, but most likely not. The reason for that is that I've set a goal that next year I want to do 30 transactions. And so this year was 10 and next year's 3 times that. So it all comes back to setting that goal and how you're going to get there and where you're going to market and, what marketing that you have done are you going to stop doing. And direct mail is one of those ones that can be hit or miss. Certain different technology that you're doing or, people you're paying to call for you or whatever. You need to be able to what we call trim the fat. You need to go through your credit card statement. You need to get rid of the things that aren't generating deals, and you need to double down or quadruple down on the things that you think are predictably going to get you to that one-page goal on how you're going to do that. If you say I'm going to assign properties and I'm going to flip properties and I'm going to buy a hold and I'm going to do this and that and that, I guarantee you within 6 months, you're not going to do any of it. You might do 1 or 2 projects. But if you come into that goal and say, I'm going to do 1 or 2 things really well, and this is where I'm going to find them, and this is how I'm going to execute that goal, then that's when the action doesn't turn into inaction, the action turns into strategy, and the strategy turns into implementation, and the implementation turns into execution. And I guarantee you guys, there's some big powerhouse wholesalers that got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people in this county driving, and they can't find properties. And when I'm talking about properties, I'm not talking about 1 or 2 here and there. I'm talking about consistently having 4, 5, 6 properties. And when this market shifts and it gets slowing down, you're going to need to have a plan on what you're going to do, because what are you going to do when you flip into a recession? There is no flipping. Maybe there's flipping, but you better be flipping to investors that are going to hold, because the over asking bidding wars for single family homes is going to start to cool off. So part of this plan is understanding what are you going to do when the market shifts, or if the market stays strong or stabilizes out, what are you going to do in that moment? And if you don't have an exit strategy, or you don't have a couple different projects going on, I'm saying this because in 2008 to 2010, I watched single-handedly, I watched one of the biggest real estate investors and developers go bankrupt. It was doing 4 to 6 projects at a time and building 4 to 5 houses at a time while buying land and acquiring other things. Wasn't over leveraged, just couldn't sell things. Had a bunch of real estate that he needed to sell and he wouldn't sell. It just sat. So you have to be very strategic on how you plan this out, right? Don't bite too much you can chew. And on that note, I wanted to talk about, there's several websites where you can get a 1-page marketing plan, but you really don't need any of that. Really, just what you need to do is you need to write the goal that you're trying to do on a piece of paper and say, hey, I'm trying to achieve this by a specific time frame within 2022. The hype right now is syndication. The hype right now is, investing with other partners and doing this and doing that. And it's all good. There's nothing bad to say about that stuff. But I want you to be prepared when single family homes, 2-1s, 3-1s, start to have 10, 15, 20, 30 days on the market. Where are you going? Where are you shifting your efforts? Is it lease options? Is it owner financing? Right? Is it renting properties that you're going to acquire? You have to look at these things, because I have noticed in the last 3 weeks a cooling off in the market. And if you just look in Springfield, look at 2-bedroom, 1-bath houses. There used to be no houses under 200 or under 300,000 on the market ever. There's like 6 right now. Once that 6 becomes 12, once that 12 becomes 15, then you're going to get way more inventory and way more people panicking to cash out. That's when it becomes harder to flip. So what I'm saying with all this is you got to have a damn strategy for 2022, and you have to start now, because you need 3 solid months to plan what you're going to do, how you're going to implement it, how you're going to create an action plan. And I'm just going to use Mike and Gail, for example. If you're already going to be sucked into a project and you know you are, what is that end goal? And are you okay with stopping and finishing that project and not having a next project planned? And that's quite all right with most people, right? You don't have to grow a multi-billion-dollar business here. But if you haven't been doing a project, or you've been purposely strategizing and creating an action plan, which I have, in full transparency, the sharks have gone into war chest mode, acquire as much money, raise as much capital, and build the largest war chest of cash. So when this market changes, we can acquire in all different asset classes. And that's been 6 months in the running. I've been planning for the 2022, 2023, while giving some of that strategy back to my real estate brokerage business. And really, while a lot of my friends kept investing and kept on buying things and making money, all I've been doing is raising capital. That's it. That's it. How many people do I know that if I wanted to pull down a development project, I could call right now and get 100,000 to 250,000 to a couple $1 million at one phone call. That's it. And the reason for that is you got to have all those pawns on the chessboard ready. And people, as you get more and more successful, more and more people will come out of the cracks, family members, friends. What are you doing? Tell us how you're making money. Why are you so busy? Right? They want to invest in you. They don't want their money sitting in a declining stock market. I don't know if you guys saw earnings this morning, but the stock market was kind of sluggish for a reason. Retail's down. There's a lot of different stuff that's going on. So being prepared for that, being prepared for a COVID blow up again, is going to be your best bet to market yourself. Now, moving into rental properties for a second and marketing, owning a rental right now is probably one of the best things you can do because supply and demand is way off. I've had buyers that couldn't get approved looking for rentals that take 4 to 6 weeks to get a rental. I'm talking about actively applying for rental properties and taking 4 to 6 weeks solid trying to get a new rental. And as more foreclosures start to happen or people try to, default, that rental demand's even get even higher. So my marketing strategy has been, how do we acquire more rental properties, more units? And then next, how do we be able to create units? Building, developing. So with that being said, all right, I think everybody needs to have a one-page marketing plan. They need to do this in Q3, Q4 of this year. You need to be prepared on what your marketing strategy and what your ad spend and what you're going to do, what systems, what key performance indicators that you're going to have lined up, so that if you go into 2022 and it's a shithole and it tanks, you know exactly what to do. If you go into 2022 and it remains positive or remains at the marker we're at, to invest in more flip properties. You can make a quick turnaround and people will still be there. The end unit buyer will be there. But if you don't plan both exits or whatever you're doing, I'm going to tell you this right now, there's more competition. I can't hear you, Mike. You're muted.
I'm hearing like a radio playing in the background, somebody driving, background noise. I don't know what's going on. I mean, I got this blasted on my speakers and everything else, and I'm hearing a whole bunch of.
I'm trying to see. Everybody is muted except Mike. Let me mute Mike. Well, Mike, why don't you mute for a second? See if it gets better. Better? Yeah.
Oh, that was it. It
it.
sounded like a car driving, radio, background noise.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yep. So in all of this, guys, I just wanted to talk about planning, right? Know your target market, know how much you want to spend. If you flip a property or you do any type of project and you have, some profit, put it back into your business. Try to do whatever you can do to generate more opportunities, more relationships. I think that is the key of tonight's conversation, is that if we don't talk about planning, we don't talk about strategy. We can talk about tools and different things I do all the time. We can talk about all the fancy shit, all the technology, all the CRMs, websites, all that stuff's good. But it all comes back to a plan, right? And that's one thing I'll give kudos to Mike. I'll call him Mikey G down there, is that he already knows his next plan. I read an email 5 minutes before I go into this meeting, and he has his, this is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to do it. This is my current status, and this is where we're going to try to do it. And I think that ultimately resonates with me, because I used to not be a big planner, guys. I used to wing things all the time. I used to just like, oh, well, we'll see what happens. I'll go with the flow. But what I realized is once you start running a business and you have overhead, you have costs, you have monthly things being charged on your credit card, you start to realize really quickly, I got to cover all that stuff, and I want to pay myself, and I got to pay taxes. So how am I going to actually run a business now and plan for the next year? And me and Ed usually do that planning. Beginning of Q3, Q4, it's usually September 15th. We start to look at what are we trying to achieve next year? How are we going to get there? What things are we going to trim? What things are we going to put into full blast? And I also do it at the technology company that I work, right? We just hired 2 or 3, 4 more people. We're putting a lot of different money into an app. We have an app. It launched at the Apple Store. So there's all these things we're trying to do, but it comes back to marketing. How are we going to promote it? How are we going to generate more leads? And I just wanted to let everybody know that algorithms are changing. And so you can't rely on just one platform. You can't just rely on Bandit Science. You can't just rely on that wholesaler, hopefully emailing you tomorrow and making sure that there's another deal there for you to buy. Those are little cherries, right? If you're doing onesie twosies that are working. But at the end of the day, I really 2 to 3 project, velocity, which I'm not going to name any names or say anything, but when I first started this organization, there was several people, 3 or 4 projects deep all the time. Now, fast forward, we're 3 years later, I think there may be like a handful, maybe, that have 2 projects at a time. And that velocity has slowed down, and that's all because of the market, the competition. A lot more contractors flipping properties, a lot more people with money here. So create a 1-page marketing plan. Look at how much money you're going to put into your business. Look at how much money you have to spend on properties. Look at your financeability. Get that folder ready. Remember, having everything ready to fill out a loan quickly. One of the number 1 delays I see, right? And I'll just say this, I don't want to skip around, but on that note of having a financing folder ready is that I get calls all the time. I want to go look at this property, Dan. Sunday, 10 a.m. Oh, can we go look at these 2 properties? Here's the address. Perfect, guys. I'm more than happy to. I'm always working. Do you guys have a pre-approval letter? No. Can't we just like go to it and look at it if we want it? Then we'll email our lender. We could take 3 to 4 days, but you got to fill in a bunch of paperwork. Do you have financial statements ready? Do you have your pay stubs ready? By the time you do that, we write an offer. Would I write an offer without a pre-approval? Maybe in a buyer's market. Not right now. Go get that pre-approval. And I said that multiple times to the same person, and he still called me to go look at properties. And I said, hey, we already have this conversation. Did you go talk to my lender? What I'm trying to tell everybody is planning equals performance. Lack of planning equals piss poor execution, or having to back out of a deal, or missing a contingency window, or not appraising, right? And I think, yes,
the Marine Corps taught me the 6 P's. Proper planning prevents piss poor performance.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly right. And I think that the reason I'm having this conversation with just a small group of people here is, to be very honest, I think every single freaking member should be on this call right now. They should be planning. They should know where they currently are. They should know where they're going and know what they want to do. That's it. If there was any value I added to the organization at all, is that. Not even the marketing expertise. If you're listening to this, stop what you're doing, schedule a planning call, figure out what you're going to do 2021 or 2022 when you don't know which way the market's going to go. You need to have a market's going to tank plan and a market's going to stay hot and heavy plan. And you need to know how much you're going to spend, how you're going to generate leads, and how many leads you do need in order to accomplish those goals. If this is a hobby or a hobby business, you just need 1 or 2 properties. That's okay, right? You're still going to make good money. But if you're going to actually take the time and effort to put into it to run it like a full-time business, then you need to be operating in that 3 to 4 transaction. And that could be from a brokerage side, a wholesaling side, it could be whatever it is, right? But it's all coming back to planning, execution, and being precise with what you're going to do. And then when you go into next year, being able to track, what did I plan for And then how did I actually execute on that? And that's one good thing that me and Ed do really well, is that we make that plan, we look at that plan, and then we realize where we're not hitting that plan, or what we did hit on that plan, or we exceeded that plan, and we pivot from that. And today was a perfect example. One of the lead generation services that we're paying for was a complete miss. We needed 1 or 2 transactions to close to pay it off in completion. It's just very piss poor performance. So we know we're going to cut that. And I said, I want to allocate that money back into a few other things. But I want to tell everybody this: with the planning and having a solid business plan, what you do need to realize about marketing and return on investment is it like playing really good blackjack. If you're a really good blackjack player, you know, no matter how good you are, sometimes you're not going to get those cards. Sometimes the things you spend money on, like direct mail, lead generation, websites, bandit signs, you're not going to hit those cards, and you're going to lose that money. And why I'm saying this all to you is that because you have a plan and you know how much money you have willing to lose, you're going into that blackjack game knowing, all right, I know where I'm going to cut my losses if it gets too bad. But when you start to hit cards and you start to actually implement and make money, and you're starting to really be up, you still need to know how much you spent and where you're going and how you're going to play or strategize those next hands. And that's the one thing that I learned in advertising school that was really clear to me. I had a professor say to me, just so you know, there's a reason why Coke and Pepsi and all these huge companies can do a bunch of marketing and advertising, because a lot of it is like going to Vegas. They're testing this, doesn't do well, they pull back on that budget somewhere. They, you know, there's a reason there's a Goodyear blimp at every football game, right? People start seeing that brand, buying more tires, right? There's an ebb and flow to it all. But you're not a massive marketing agency where you can test everything. So you have to be very precise on what is working, what is not working, and what do I want to try in this business? And if I don't get the cards that I'm dealt, how am I going to pivot? Because I see a lot of people in real estate, especially on the agent side, they get a little bit deal money here, a little bit deal money here, and then they start blowing money on specific different lead generation. And then next thing you know, they're going broke because they don't have a predictable system. And I think the one piece of this, yes, Mike, you're muted.
Back in your blackjack example, so you're telling us you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, and know when to run.
Yes. Yeah. Right. What you said is marketing. And I think that's, if you don't have a marketing degree or a degree in advertising, or you have, at least you're an entrepreneur that has been successful and has lost some money, right? If you ask me right now, I'll be super transparent with you. Dan, how much do you spend on marketing a month? I would say right now, $60,000 a year just in marketing, advertising, lead generation, $60,000 a year between 3 companies. And most people don't even make $60,000 on one project they did the entire year. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying it because I know that even if I burnt through all of that 60 in the entire year, the next year, I'm going to make it all back. I've built a big database. I've farmed a specific area. The lead generation machine is starting to build velocity, right? When me and Ed started the real estate business on the brokerage side, I remember on my board, there was one customer, my very first customer. And then, you know, fast forward 11 months, 12 months later, when we started to really team up and really get the things flowing, it got to a point where there was like 18 to 22 people. And it wouldn't have been possible if I wouldn't have planned for it, right? Been able to outsource and be able to kind of, and I haven't even picked up the phone really to cold call. So when that starts and that element of the business and the market starts to shift, that's when I start building more and more relationships, and putting more sweat equity into it. But as the market's hot, right, you want to be able to create those opportunities and be able to ride that wave as long as possible. So that being said, does anybody have any questions about getting to the goal that they want? Because everyone's goals are different in this room, but how do you strategize and write something down that when every morning when you have your coffee, you look at your whiteboard and you say, my goal is X amount of transactions or X amount of deals, and how am I getting there? Where am I at currently? That's the question. Yes, Mike.
Well, to complement that, with any goal, and this is from years in sales, they just break it down. Okay, by December 1st, I want to do X. Well, okay, how many weeks between now and then? What do I got to do per week based on, so many calls, get so many contacts, get so many appointments, on. And when I was young in sales, and all these sales managers would tell me, I was like, oh man, no, I'm just gonna go sell. Hey, it is the numbers, but you can't beat mathematics. You put in the dues, broken down by the goal, and it's like, there it is.
100%. And I just wanted to show you guys something before we get off here. That's what I do every single time. Exactly what Mike said, right? One of our goals, this is, this was the beginning of this year, was, and this was based on if we were full-time, we're part-time technically with a lot of the other stuff going on. But one of our goals was to hit 7.2 million, which is about 20 deals. And we're about halfway there, working half as much as we would have if this would have been like 3/4 time to full time. But we knew exactly what Mike said. How many listing appointments are needed? How many appointments a year is it going to get us to that goal? And it was 50. I need to talk to one person a week that's going to turn into a deal. Possibly, maybe not possibly, right? And of those, what is that? That's nearly 4 a month. And then what does that turn into if I was going to hire a cold caller at a 2% conversion rate? Well, that's 2,500 calls at a minimum to generate, a 10 call per day, calling 5 days a week at a 2%. Really, it's like 1%. But I was just being, leveraging and working backwards. So no matter what you're doing, even if it's flipping a house and you're going to buy it, you look at the ARV and you say, okay, our goal here is 75,000 net after all debt service, whatever, minus taxes, right? Then what is that number? And if that number is not enough, how do we do that times 2? Or how do we speed that up by at least 33%? Because the faster you can get done with something, the faster you can get the money back, the faster you can redo it again. And I think that's really, it's these two levers, right? It's how much money I want to make. Is it faster in time, or is it make more profit margin? Because volume, right, is going to control those levers ultimately. But if you're never ready to get into the second project or the third project, and it's just too much work, or it logistically doesn't make sense, it's the whole, saying that my grandfather used to say, which is, if you're going to own a construction company, you better not be swinging a hammer. And I used to be like, what does that mean? Like, I don't have no clue what that means, Grandpa. And my grandpa was super smart. He owned a construction company and an asphalt, asphalt and paving company. And he had this African-American gentleman that worked for him. And he I'd always say like, hey, do you ever go on your paving jobs? And he's like, oh yeah, I go out, I give the quote, I make friends with the owner, I get, get quotes for other construction work I'm doing, and then I hand it over to Pete. Pete does the entire job. Pete deals with the customer, and then your mom or my grandmother deals with all the accounting. And I really am not involved in the project whatsoever, other than the last day when I go to pick up the check. And I was always like, this is like me, like 9 or 10 years old. I'm like, but don't you enjoy doing the work? Like, I was just like, didn't comprehend that he was not working at the jobs. And this is the same reason that he was at investment properties and I'm helping mow lawns and he's getting more rentals and more commercial real estate, is because he wasn't doing the work. And it came back to he had a marketing machine of both referrals, networking, relationships. And when he did any type of work, when he was running out of work, I remember we used to go out on Sundays. He would drive around because most of the stuff back in Ohio was closed on Sundays. He would drive around and look for shitty parking lots. And he would write down the addresses of all the shitty parking lots. And then I'd be like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm going to stop by there next week when I make my rounds, or I'm going to send a letter and I'm going to include a quote of what I think it's going to cost. So I'm going into the meeting with knowing exactly who needs it, how much is it going to cost, and can I sign that contract and get it done now? Marketing. He knew the week ahead of time, or if he was slowing down, that he needed to go find more paving jobs. And I think that ultimately is like, that stuck with me in my life, was like, oh, he's not swinging a hammer. He's not sitting on the back of the asphalt machine in 100-degree heat, sweating his you-know-what off, right? He's literally out there looking for more work, networking, marketing, and building a business. And guys, no formal education. He was in the U.S. Army. He was a cook and a professional boxer. So you're not talking to somebody that went to college to be a savvy business person. It was grit, hustle, and planning and marketing. That's all it was. And that's what I learned from him, was that he was always thinking like, how do I find that next job? What am I going to do? And support a family and take care of me, right? That's ultimately where I learned and inherited those traits of being an entrepreneur. No one in my entire family is an entrepreneur, by the way. And I'm talking aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, sisters, uncle, every single person in every single direction. No one owns their own company except my grandfather and myself. That's it. And so that's where I get a lot of this passion to tell everybody, guys, even it doesn't matter how old you are, where you are in your career, doesn't matter if you're a beginning investor or you're super experienced. Where is your plan? How much money are you spending? How much do you want to make? Where are you going? And how are you going to draw that out? And I think that is ultimately what helps people understand where they need help, where to ask for advice, right? And I think that's the key. So any questions, anything we want to leave with? Floor is yours. Yes, Mike.
Your story about was it your dad or grandfather driving around parking lots? In all my years of telecom, I've signed up lots of businesses. I signed up a glass company. There's a couple in town. I actually signed them both up. Anyways, but I was friends with the owner, and one time I was talking, I said, what do you do for marketing? Oh, we do this, we do that. I said, hey, give me a stack of business cards. I'll drive around on Sunday night. I'll break windows, leave a card there. Monday morning, you get a whole bunch of calls.
Yeah, it's good. Oh man, that's awesome.
He laughed.
No, it's good. That's really good. No, I think if anybody ever has any questions about this stuff, feel free to reach out. I'm an open book. I'm more than happy to jump on a call with you guys. If you have questions about any of the planning, what to do, how to do it, let me know. I'm not some billionaire here, so you're not learning from Donald Trump or somebody who's built multi-level businesses. But if I can help in any way, form, or shape, Even if it's house hacking, even if it's buying a house and living it and flipping it, let me know. So cool, guys. Well, on that note, no one else has anything to say. I'm out.
Okay.
I would say one thing,
Yes.
that when we first started this, there was a woman who was an accountant that came to a REIA meeting one night.
Oh,
Whoop. Hold on. Their dial-up is not working. Can't hear you.
no.
Hold on.
I thought, I simply don't have it to do that. And looking back on that, I'm thinking how much better off and how much I would have saved in both in time and aggravation and pain trying to get this stuff straightened out if I had just said, well, we bought all these programs, but I'm going to get this too.
Yeah.
Right now, when you start. That's kind of for you, Shalene.
No.
But it's for everybody, really. That is one thing. It's like taking a bunch of nutrients and then dropping them off because you feel like you can't afford them. And 5 years down the road, you really don't feel so good. And you think, now I can't afford not to take them.
Yep.
If I'm going to go on.
No.
And that's a kind of thinking that I would encourage everybody to have.
Yeah. No, my wife, we pay an accountant and a bookkeeper to consult my wife on things she doesn't know about accounting. Right? Just like the little things. Like today, she's like, "Oh, we got another bill for the consultant." I'm like, "What'd you guys work on?" She's like, "We're setting up the entire real estate accounting and the profit and loss." So I'm like, "Perfect. Pay her as much as you want, as long as you're learning something. It's a new skill, and we can do it in house. We have more control of it, more confidentiality. Let's do it."
I'm comparing that to what you're talking about marketing and how you go about planning and the things you need to do. And Mike's comment about breaking it into smaller steps.
Yep.
And that's where I need to start. I'm starting a new business,
Yeah.
Selling some very special nutrients. And the company has been in business long enough. They have this plan set up. You get 3 more people working for you and they get 3 more people. But what they don't tell you is how to go about getting those people. And so that's the one part of the plan. Hey, you need to be making 6 calls a day, or you need to contact, or you just need to talk to X number of people, or talk to everybody.
Yeah.
And have those last pieces, like a doctor telling you to go on a diet, but not telling you how to go about it.
Like you said, like, just keep talking to people. There's a distressed house on every road. There's somebody looking for a house everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
A million people renting in every direction. And there's never going to be a shortage of business in the real estate sector. It's just a matter of how do you play each market? How do you plan? How do you break it down into a good executable plan of attack? So pleasure is all mine as usual. Mike, Shalene, Grace, who had some bad McDonald's, and the mystery caller. I hope everyone enjoyed the conversation. And if, like always, Dan@theexitagents.com is my email address. Feel free to put it in your Gmail as easy and as fast as possible. So,
Thank you, Dan.
Testimony. This guy is a brilliant strategist. Besides everything else, real estate strategist. That's
thank
all
you,
I'm saying.
sir. I appreciate that feedback. It means a lot. Awesome, guys. Well, have a good night. I hope to see everybody. And Mike and Gail Glass, next time I talk to you, you're going to tell me that you've evicted somebody. So,
It probably won't be that quick, but we'll get it done. Yeah.
Cash for keys or McDonald's for keys.
Or
Yeah.
send in the Marines.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
can do that too.
Awesome. Have a good one, guys.
Okay.
Night.
Good night.